I went to hear this lecture about this Professor Gary Burge. He claims to be a New Testament scholar. So I want to talk about his views on the Bible. The lecture was mostly politics, and he was taking the anti-Israel, anti-Jewish position, which I'll refute in other videos. But here I just want to take on his claim to know about the Bible. Whatever book he was talking about was not the Jewish Bible or the Christian Bible. It was some other Bible from some other country in some other world, because it had nothing to do with reality. His basic claim is the following: that Israel does not have a right to the land. First of all, it was sponsored by an organization called Abraham's Children, which says because Abraham had many children, therefore the covenant doesn't belong just to the Jews, which is not the Bible. I don't know where they get that from. I mean, he did have other children, but think about Genesis 22, where God says, take your son, your only son, the one you love. Even though Ishmael existed, he was talking about Isaac. And then in Genesis 15, he says, your Abraham, your descendants will inherit the land, will be slaves in the land of Egypt. Well, who was that? That was only through Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and those people, that lineage. And that's who gets the promise. And then read Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Samuel, Kings, all the 15 literary prophets. It's all about the descendants of Joseph and Jacob and Isaac, their descendants, none of the other children of Abraham, who the whole Bible's about. Read the Bible. It's very simple. This guy, I don't know where he got his education, what he knows, but certainly he's not preaching anything about the Bible. And then, he's supposedly a New Testament scholar. What about Hebrews 11:17, which quote that same verse about God's only son of Abraham through Isaac? But the main thing I want to talk about was the prophets. He makes the following absurd jump. He says, because the prophets demanded justice, which they do. Therefore, the Israelites, since they are not just, lose the land. Well, that is such a joke. Complete misreading of the Bible, nothing to do with reality. Now, why do I say that? Well, first of all, God knows that justice is not an absolute possibility among human beings. Think about Lexus and the relentless pursuit of perfection. They know they're never going to make a perfect car, but they keep trying to make a better car. Well, that's what the prophets were saying to Israel too. They have to act justly. But the covenant is forever. In Exodus, when God's giving the Ten Commandments, he calls them an Am Segulam, Mulachat Kohanim, Goy Kadosh. What's fascinating about that is I mentioned a few of those terms of this guy Berg, who's supposed to be a Bible guy. He didn't know what I was talking about. He has no idea about Hebrew, evidently, from his reaction. Well, how can you teach Bible without knowing the original language? It's beyond me. Guy holds himself up as some kind of authority. And then think about every time it mentions the covenant, it often uses the phrase Leolam Va'ed. Now, what does that mean? Leolam Va'ed, forever and ever. Or take Hosea, who draws this imagery about a guy being married to a straying woman who keeps taking her back. Erastich li leolam. I will be betrothed to you forever. He says it 3 times. Erastich li leolam. Erastich li leolam. I will be betrothed to you forever. And then think about all the prophets. Besides them saying you have to act justly, they all talk about how Israel, you're going to be exiled, and then don't worry, things will be okay, you'll go back and you'll rebuild the temple and you'll re-inherit the land of Israel. Just read the prophets. It's all you have to do to see what a ignoramus or liar this guy is. I mean, what other possibility could there be that he's purposely distorting the ideas of the Bible to serve his own political agenda, which is anti-Jewish and anti-Semitic? I mean, that's about all you can say as you think about all of this. The Bible is a Zionist document. That's what it is. The whole thing is that the idea is God says to Abraham, your descendants, through Isaac, because that's the whole storyline, is through Isaac, that guy will inherit the land. Ishmael, who's Isaac's brother, becomes a side, non-relevant character. And Jacob's brother, Esau, becomes an irrelevant non-actor. It's only Jacob's 12 sons, and then Joseph and Judah, who becomes the main tribe after the exile in 722 BCE. So, Dr. Gary Burge, I don't know what you're teaching your students at Wheaton College and how they can continue to have you, but this idea that you are some kind of expert on the Bible and use that for your nefarious purposes to lie about the situation in the Middle East is really something else to behold, because clearly you don't have any idea what you're talking about. I mean, in the one verse he quotes from Leviticus claiming that the land is not forever, that is a verse about the Jubilee, the Yovel. and that every 50 years the land reverts to its original owner. It's nothing to do with God's promise to Israel that they will inherit the land of Israel. Well, he's either taking it purposely out of context, or he doesn't know that he's taking it out of context. Anyway, so the long and the short of it is, if you just simply read the Bible on your own, with an unfiltered glance, you'll see it's a Zionist book, which God's promises to Israel. Yes, they have to try and be as good as they can. But you just think about it. In the whole Middle East, where's one country where Christians can be safe? That's Israel. Where's one country where gays can be safe? Israel. Where's one country that women can be safe? Israel. Arabs love to be in Israel because it's the only place they have any freedom. There are, you know what? How many Arabs there are in the Israeli Knesset? How many Arabs get to vote freely? There's no other place in the whole Middle East where that's true. Religion is respected in Israel. It's the greatest democracy in the world. Sometimes it causes problems. Versus the Palestinians, which are under tyrannical rulership, mass murders, corruption. You read Arab press about what they think about Hamas and how Abbas is hated by the Palestinians. It's unbelievable. This guy is so distorted in his twisted worldview.